Jasmine Crockett's got another hot take. No blacks and whites on a wedding cake. The Democrats' new chosen one, Jasmine Crockett, is in the news again for an old clip where she attacked Florida Rep Byron Donalds for marrying a white woman. Roll it, Bertha.
The fact that you sitting around talking about life was better under Jim Crow? Is this because you don't understand history? Or literally it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you?
The second Greg Gutfeld leaned forward, the entire room felt like it tilted. Something massive was coming like a storm, ready to strike. This wasn't the start of some friendly jab. It was a full-blown ambush in broad daylight. Jasmine Crockett was still grinning, completely unaware that smile was seconds from vanishing. She looked ready for a debate. But Greg wasn't here for sparring practice. He was swinging for the fences. He didn't ease in. He exploded with his first line, and it landed like dynamite. Jasmine tried to respond with one of her signature fiery comebacks, but Greg spun it around like a coin, quick, smooth, and absolutely crushing. Gasps shot through the room, then cheers erupted like a rock concert had just kicked off. Greg kept going, pounding through her talking points like they were wet paper in a hurricane. She tried to rally and turn it into a speech, but Greg took every word and twisted it into a punchline that hit harder than expected. At one point she mumbled, "I think you punch, I think you're okay with punching," but Greg didn't flinch, not even a blink. He just stared at her, stone cold, like a teacher watching a student forget the alphabet. Then he dropped the sledgehammer line, "Congresswoman or chaos coordinator?" And it struck like lightning in a dry field. Every reply she tossed out sounded like half-finished social media clips. Awkward, messy, and way off mark. Greg wasn't smiling. He was ripping her entire act apart, piece by chaotic piece.
First they cursed, now they thirst for blood. Jasmine Crockett is upping her temper tantrums, now saying the only way Democrats can win elections is by throwing hands.
I think you punch. I think you're okay with you okay with punching. It's Ted Cruz. This dude has to be knocked over the head, hard, right? There is no niceties with him. At all.
Greg kept tearing through her defenses like a blade through soggy cardboard. Every sentence she delivered fell apart before it even landed. No matter what Jasmine said, Greg flipped it into something sharper and more unforgettable. She came in loud, but Greg came in lethal. His grin widened like someone just pulled a prize from a cereal box, and it screamed, "This isn't over yet." Then came the moment that froze the air. Or, literally, it's because you married a white woman, and so you think that whitewashed you. Greg didn't budge, not even a twitch in his eye. He blinked once, then hit back. "That's not very woke, is it?" And the silence afterward was bone-chilling. Jasmine scrambled to fix it, but her words only made things worse. "Had nothing to do with the fact that he actually moves by wheels," she insisted, and Greg tilted his head like he'd just heard a plot twist that ruined an entire series. He lunged, shredding her confused statement like an outtake reel stuck in a loop. What was meant to be a power moment unraveled like a sweater caught on a nail. And Greg? He leaned in like a critic watching a disaster movie made by influencers. He didn't even acknowledge her credentials. He zoomed in on the train wreck. The volume was up, but the meaning was missing. Greg made it clear. This wasn't politics. It was performance. In costume? She doesn't need a podium, he fired off. She needs fog machines, backup dancers, and cue cards. The audience burst out laughing as the final jab cut through. Even the fog machine would be less dramatic. And just like that, the silence said it all. No one had to announce who lost control of the room. It was written all over the stunned expressions.
Or literally, it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you.
That's not very woke, is it? Of course, Crockett isn't the only Democrat who's opposed to interracial marriage. So, Dana, Governor Hot Wheels, she claims that it had nothing to do with the fact that he actually moves by wheels in a wheelchair, and he's good looking.
Her cleanup.
Greg Gutfeld leaned back like he was watching a live sitcom unravel, and he wasn't missing a single second of it. Every time Jasmine Crockett opened her mouth, Greg readied another sharp strike like a swordsman polishing the blade. This wasn't a debate anymore. It was a public masterclass in how to dismantle theatrical politics. Greg didn't just challenge her, he played whack-a-mole with every ounce of outrage she tossed out, flattening it every time it popped up. When Jasmine launched into identity politics, flailing her arms like she was coaching a pep rally about oppression, Greg stayed still, unmoved, focused, and sharp as glass. He saw through it instantly, like peeking through clear plastic on a broken teleprompter. "She's not debating," he declared, "she's auditioning," and that line crushed the room like a wrecking ball. Greg wasn't subtle. He spelled it out. She wasn't there to serve. She was there to trend. Then he narrowed his eyes and delivered the next blow like a sharpened dart. "It's giving straight-up TMZ at this point." Laughter broke out across the panel, but for Crockett, the embarrassment was just beginning. She threw herself into a mocking impression of Governor Abbott, declaring, "We in these hot Texas streets, honey," like she was at open mic night in a comedy club. Then she jabbed harder with, "The only thing hot about him is that he is a hot mess." The clip took off online like wildfire. But Greg didn't blink, not once. He stayed as composed as someone who saw the crash long before it happened. Then came the punch, clean, fast, and devastating. "She doesn't just bring opinions," he declared. "She brings a fire alarm nobody asked for." That viral moment turned instantly into a live meltdown. Greg dismantled her message piece by piece, showing how a real issue morphed into a one-woman show. She could be talking about highways, he said, and somehow end up ranting about split ends and colonizer concrete. And just like that, the circus took over, loud, messy, and impossible to look away from.
So much for Michelle Obama's "when they go low, we go high." Crockett went as low as humanly possible by mocking Governor Greg Abbott for being paralyzed.
We in these hot Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot mess.
Jasmine Crockett wasn't just dramatic, she was a walking spectacle, and not the kind anyone asked for. It felt like someone mashed up political theater with a high school play, where the script caught fire and the fog machine had a mind of its own. Greg wasted no time. He went straight for the jugular. "She needs less stage time and more study time," he fired, and the panel burst into laughter. Meanwhile, Jasmine spun in circles with tangled talking points while Greg calmly held up a mirror. Clear, cold, and impossible to escape. Then came the next killer blow. "You can hear history textbooks weeping in the background," he snapped, and the internet practically exploded in real time. Before she could form a sentence, memes flooded social media like wildfire. But Greg wasn't backing off. He was just getting warmed up. Just as Jasmine tried to collect herself, he jabbed again with a smirk that could slice steel. "Honestly, I want to see more of her. She's the perfect face for the modern Democrat Party." That line hit like a grenade, and chaos took over the set. Someone tried to throw her a lifeline. I do think there are a lot of Democrats that really like Jasmine Crockett, but the comment vanished under Greg's next strike. Let's be clear, the name-calling is on both sides. Greg didn't blink. He zoomed in like a sniper. Then he quoted her again. "One guy in a wheelchair, another hot take, no blacks and whites on a wedding cake," and the room went dead silent. That silence? It was louder than any scream. Moments later, a tidal wave of laughter crashed over the panel. Greg wasn't just roasting her, he was peeling off the mask of performance to show the chaos underneath. "This isn't politics," he declared. "It's performance art dipped in glitter and rage." He even described her delivery as verbal parkour. constantly flipping, dodging, spinning, but never actually landing on anything real. Never heard of her, he added, and the burn scorched like a spotlight on a hollow stage. She treats facts like a cat with a laser pointer, chasing them, missing them, then blaming the furniture, he cracked. But Jasmine didn't stop. She kept spinning like a smoke detector stuck on high. Then Greg circled back to the infamous Governor Hot Wheels insult, the one she tossed like it was nothing. Come on now, and the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot mess. Greg turned toward the camera like he was telling a ghost story, then whispered, "Whoa!" And then he smirked. And she's acting like that wasn't about the wheelchair. The audience didn't need to guess anymore. They saw the truth clear as day. But it didn't stop at just one comment. Greg brought out the full file. Old posts, old likes, even one laughing about Abbott rolling away. This wasn't just a slip-up, it was a habit, and Greg ripped it apart like a roast with receipts. There's an entire culture built on charisma and zero content, he warned, and Jasmine Crockett? She's the poster child. He compared her to a living Twitter thread. Loud, messy, and completely allergic to facts. Every sentence she speaks feels like a group project gone rogue, he snapped. And no one disagreed. She doesn't need a podium. She needs stage lights, backup dancers, and maybe a reminder of what the topic even was. Because Greg had exposed it all, she wasn't leading, she was trending. And as her speech unraveled into full-blown nonsense, Greg leaned back like a man watching a slow-motion car crash, glitter flying, lights flashing, and not a single point in sight.
You know, Richard, I don't know about you, but I want to see way more of Jasmine Crockett. I want to see her everywhere. I think she is the perfect face of the modern Democrat Party. What say you?
I do think that there are a lot of Democrats that really like Jasmine Crockett. But let's be very clear here, and let's acknowledge that the name calling is on both sides of the aisle. Everybody does it. It gins up the base. I mean, I think we can go through Donald Trump's greatest hits of name calling, and we can go blow for blow. And I think
find one about a guy in a wheelchair. Jasmine Crockett's got another hot take. No blacks and whites on a wedding cake. The Democrats' new chosen one, Jasmine Crockett.
This wasn't political analysis anymore. This was a televised takedown of a performance pretending to be policy. Watching Jasmine Crockett speak on the House floor felt, Greg said, like witnessing someone build an imaginary universe. Loud, chaotic, and on live TV. One moment she was ranting about potholes, and the next she was yelling about ancestral trauma caused by asphalt. Greg could barely keep up. She could blame buffering on colonialism, he joked, and people would still give her a standing ovation. At this point, it wasn't satire. It felt like prophecy. What shocked Greg most wasn't the nonsense, it was the applause that followed, not because it made sense, but because no one in the room had the guts to admit it didn't. It was like being trapped at a dinner party where someone blurts out, "I think the moon is gluten," and everyone nods politely just to avoid the silence. Greg called it the Crockett effect. Loud confusion sold as courage, with drama sprayed on like glitter. She wasn't there to debate, she was there to perform, and Greg crushed it all with one brutal line, debating Jasmine Crockett is like playing chess with a pigeon. She knocks over the board, leaves a mess, then struts around screaming, "Checkmate!" But what made it worse? She believed every word she shouted. Every speech came with an imaginary spotlight and applause that probably echoed in her own head. Greg didn't sugarcoat it, he called it congressional cosplay. And Jasmine didn't just show up in costume, she brought glitter, slogans, and a microphone that should have come with hazard pay. Then came the punchline that cracked the room wide open. If you dropped one of her speeches into Microsoft Word, Clippy would pop up and say, "It looks like you're trying to make a point. Would you like some help?" And Greg didn't stop there. You just know she'd accuse Clippy of bias and throw the laptop out the window. The crowd was howling by now. But behind every laugh was a deep truth. The chaos wasn't funny because it was fake, it was funny because it was real. Every time she tried to make sense, she got tangled in buzzwords and bizarre logic. Greg said listening to her was like using a GPS during a fever dream, blaring directions, totally lost but somehow convinced she knew the way.
It's the streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now.
Whoa.
And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So,
Now, she claims that she wasn't talking about Abbott's wheelchair at all. Yet she's mentioned Abbott's wheels before. In 2022, she posted Beto's rolling around the state. Where's Abbott rolling to? And according to the Washington Free Beacon, Crockett also liked several Facebook comments referring to Abbott as Hot Wheels back in 2021.
The moment someone finally challenged Jasmine Crockett, it didn't become a debate. It turned into a full-blown theatrical meltdown. It was like watching a confetti cannon explode, with no warning and no plan to clean it up. Crockett didn't fight back with facts. She gasped, pointed fingers, scowled, then launched straight into another whirlwind of chaos. Greg had seen enough. He wasn't holding back anymore. She doesn't need a translator for Spanish or French, he snapped. She needs one for plain English. And that jab hit like lightning, cutting through the noise with razor-sharp precision. Greg said her metaphors were like broken GPS signals bouncing off lost satellites, never landing, never arriving, just spinning endlessly in space. But she kept going, doubling down like someone locked into a script they didn't understand but refused to stop performing. That's when Greg tossed the spotlight to Tyrus, like a coach calling a timeout during a disaster. Tyrus, I go to you for no particular reason, Greg smirked as the set turned into pure chaos. Tyrus blinked, confused, then asked the question everyone was thinking. Is she making any point there? Greg didn't need to answer. The stunned silence did it for him. Crockett dove right back into her solo act, swinging wildly like every congressional hearing was just another tryout for reality TV. She could be standing in front of a burning building, Greg said, call it a light drizzle, and then accuse the fire truck of being ableist. And the scariest part? People would still clap, not because they agreed, but because they were too scared to be the one who didn't. Greg called it Stockholm Ovation, when the audience claps just to survive the confusion. Then he imagined her next career move, a memoir called How I Yelled My Way Through Congress. Or maybe a podcast where she debates her own reflection while sipping from a glitter mug labeled Truth Bombs. At this point, Greg wasn't exaggerating. He was just narrating. Crockett wasn't delivering arguments. She was unleashing smoke bombs. Every word was fog, every pause a dramatic cue from a play no one auditioned for. She's not here to govern, Greg said plainly. She's here to star in her own spin-off of America's Next Top Outrage. And Greg, he had the best seat in the house, popcorn in hand and ready for the next scene.
Not just for one thing, I'm mad at Charmaine the guy because he should have kicked her out. See, the problem is that we are allowing our own culture to be openly racist and get away with it. Now, if a white person is offended by that, and they should be, they say something, it's like, it's not the same thing. But if you say that, and another brother looks at you and goes, man, you wrong for that.
You know, they are so lost, and they just have no idea how to come back. They're cursing, they're fighting, they're burning, they're lost. I said it months ago. The party is over. They've got to come up with something new. And this woman chasing a guy that's New York City. That's a subway. In New York City, you can wear a MAGA hat.
Even her press clips didn't feel real. They felt like unrehearsed improv on fast forward. One second, she was shouting about immigration, and the next she blurted, "Ain't none of you trying to go inform right now?" Arms flapping like she was guiding airplanes through a solar eclipse. Greg's eyes lit up like he'd just seen Bigfoot riding a unicorn. She didn't bring facts, he said. She brought confidence. Turned up to full volume with zero accuracy. That was her entire brand, noise over knowledge. And that applause? It didn't feel earned. It felt programmed. like someone passed around a memo that said, "Clap no matter what." One poor guy clapped completely out of rhythm, like even his hands were confused about what just happened. Greg swore he saw someone by the camera mouth the words, "What is happening?" And it wasn't curiosity, it was surrender. That audience had been trapped in her word maze so long, they applauded just to feel like it was over. Greg leaned back, shook his head, and dropped it cold and clear. She doesn't need critics. She needs closed captions and a warning label. Then came the meltdown that went viral. Crockett barking, "Raise your arm! Raise your hand!" like she was leading a courtroom mutiny in a high school drama class gone rogue. Greg nearly fell out of his chair laughing. She tried to link immigration to mockery of Americans, but instead it nosedived off a cliff with streamers and fireworks on the way down. That's when Greg captured her perfectly, with one clean strike. Chaos in a designer blazer. She wasn't a politician. She was a headline machine, spinning every microphone into a spotlight and every issue into a performance. As the cameras started to dim, Greg didn't have to write a closing line. Jasmine Crockett had already done it for him. Loud, wild, unscripted, and completely out of orbit. A dragon sense, Jeff Bezos, taking to Twitter to promote because in today's circus of politics, Crockett didn't come armed with answers, she came with jazz hands. And Greg? He sat there, front row, popcorn in hand, smiling like a man who knew exactly how this show would end. Under the swirling, sparkling madness of the Crockett Carnival.